so whatever you don't want said out there, don't say it now. All right. So we got about 2 minutes and we'll be getting started. Thank you all so much for your time tonight, and my special guest panelists, thank you so much for helping me out over the past couple weeks with everything. Thank you, thank you. And to our candidates, thank you for your courage to put yourselves out there. Thank you. Okay, we have less than 1 minute. Okay, 7 o'clock. Here we go. If I can get a thumbs up from everyone, ready to roll? All right, all right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Evanston Live TV. This is the District 202 School Board Candidate Forum. I'm Malika Gardner, your host for this evening. And we have our sponsor. Our sponsor is here. Yes, he made it. He made it. I want to thank everyone for watching us this evening. And for those who couldn't make it, this will be recorded and put out on social media for you to check out at a later date. This is a very, very important event because you have leadership in our community who are wanting to really take a role in the development and in the whole system of our young people at Evanston Township High School. I myself am a graduate of ETHS. Very, very proud. We have our timekeeper tonight, Venicia Mayo Burton. She graduated New Trier. We're not going to hold that against her. And she was a cheerleader on top of that for New Trier.
Go Trebs.
Yes. She's joining us from Scottsdale, Arizona. So thank you so much for your time and helping us out. Venicia, thank you. And thank you to everyone watching. You could be anywhere right now this evening, and you chose to get involved and participate because leadership is very, very important in Evanston. I want to give a special thank you to our sponsor, C&W Market and Ice Cream. We have Clarence Weaver, the part owner. His wife is the other owner. And they have some amazing things going on, and they're always in support. They've sponsored other forums for me as well. They're all about leadership in the community, serving the community, and definitely about education. So I would love for Mr. Weaver to tell you all about C&W and why they chose to be a sponsor, other than me asking them to do it.
So thank you, Malika. And, obviously, C&W is pretty much butted up right against District 202. So we have the pleasure of dealing with probably micro issues based on the majority of the issues that this board and resources deal with on a regular basis. But because we pretty much are engaged with the students on a daily basis, District 202 means a lot to our business model. A big reason why we are here today is because of the high school. We are in effect providing energy and resources so they can go right back and participate in everything that is important in the education sector for the youth during this window of time. If I had to look back, or if I could take a step back to my high school days, I would be extremely ecstatic of knowing the people like the candidates that are actively engaging and employing and dealing with the superintendent, helping to develop policies that make District 202 a success, and just overseeing a lot of key things that impact the community. Education is very, very important because these are the seed moments. This is when the youth get a small portion of an idea of who they're going to become in the future. And without a board that's assisting such a positive staff, such a strong youth base, and really the community, because it's right in the middle of Evanston, the impact that's being made by the efforts of the members of the board go way beyond what they will even see, because none of us see the youth and what they become, but the impact is just phenomenal. And, I've had the pleasure of knowing some of the candidates very well. I can't state my position or my bias, but I definitely feel that the big part about this meeting and this opportunity is the power of choice. And everyone should have a right to hear about the candidates and make a decision that makes sense to them and stand on their morals for that. So Wendy and I, from a CNW perspective, we're doing things that need to be done in the community as well. And I don't want this to be about CNW, because this forum is really about the candidates. But if anybody wants to find out more about what we're doing, feel free to stop by, because I can give you a long list of things that we're looking to do. But I can say this: I am very proud of the candidates that are in play. If I had bigger windows, I probably would have every candidate in the window. But at the same time, we are here for a reason. And I don't want people to forget about the reason why we're here, nor do I want people to forget about the reason why the board is in place. And the board makes a huge difference. And for those that are existing members of the board, I thank you for the work that you guys have done in the past. And those that are looking to become members of the board, don't let any of your biases. There's something when you deal in the DEI space, and it talks about unconscious bias. And sometimes we have to look at our own position and not let our biases weigh in on our decisions. The decisions that need to be made need to benefit the youth at large. And so, I thank you, Malika, for the opportunity to speak to this group. And I wish you guys the best at presenting yourselves to the voting parties at large. So I wish you guys the best. So hopefully I didn't take up too much time.
No, everything you said, Mr. Weaver, needed to be said. And thank you so much. Thank you to you and Wendy, CNW, for all that you do for the community. And if anyone doesn't know about CNW, definitely look them up. I mean, they served us during the pandemic, and they serve our youth because they're right across the street from ETHS, and they're just phenomenal leaders in this community. So thank you so much for your time this evening, Mr. Weaver.
Not a problem. Thank you. Good luck, candidates. And hello, Shelley.
All right, so it's time to let's get to it and see who these candidates are. First, I want to introduce our special guest panelists. These are community members who care. They just care. And when I reached out to them to become a part of this panel, I was very, very excited that they said yes. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves 60 seconds so that everyone watching can get an idea of who this panel is. So we have Dr. Olivia Perlow. Dr. Perlow, if you can give us 30 to 60 seconds, who you are, and thank you so much for your time tonight.
Hello, my name is Dr. Olivia Perlow. I am the chair of
sociology, African and African American studies, Latinx and Latin American studies, and women's gender and sexuality studies at Northeastern Illinois University. I have a daughter within the district. She's a senior now, so about to go to college, and I am invested in this. So I appreciate the candidates, and I appreciate you for having me on here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prolo. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next we have Shelley Gates. Shelley,
Hi.
first of all, let me say all these panelists came highly recommended. Highly recommended. So,
Well, that's good to know.
yeah.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Shelley Gates. I know a lot of you, and a lot of you know me. I've lived in Evanston for a really long time. I am the recently retired department chair for career and tech ed at ETHS. I served in that position for 18 years, and we did a lot of really fun, cool stuff and made a lot of differences for kids. And of course, I still want to be involved to keep all of that going. So that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, Shelley. Thank you. And we have Max Weinberg, who he stopped me in the middle of the street to compliment the D65 forum. And we had a conversation literally in the middle of the street.
That's true. That's true. We checked out our calendars in the middle, right in front of the library. It's great to be here. My name is Max Weinberg, and I have a 16-year-old junior in the district, proud parent of a student who's in the special ed program at Evanston Township. I have experience working in District 65, and I currently support school leaders throughout Chicago Public Schools and Milwaukee. My background's really in elementary and middle school, but definitely appreciate everyone's interest in leadership. I understand the value of school board leadership, especially with everything going on in our country right now. And so protecting fundamental rights of our children is super, super important to me as a citizen and educator. So thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you for your time tonight, Max. We have Sarah Bogan. Many of you probably know Sarah. She was one of the co-founders of Evanston Fight for Black Lives. So this young woman is like fire. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I've lived in Evanston most of my life. I started my education in District 65 at Walker, and I graduated from ETHS in 2016. I went to University of Illinois in Champaign-Urbana and got my degree in learning and education studies with a concentration in cultural understanding and educational equity. I then worked at a nonprofit when I graduated, which was primarily focused on getting funding for Black leaders in education. Like Malika said, I'm part of Evanston Fight for Black Lives. I've been sitting on the Reimagining Public Safety Committee through the city. So I'm just passionate about education and Evanston as a whole. So I'm honored to be a part of tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time tonight, Sarah. And we have an ETHS student. I thought it was very, very important to hear the voice of someone actually attending D202. So we have Elijah Gaultier.
Hello, my name is Elijah Gaultier. I'm currently a junior at Evanston Township High School. I participate in ACE Mentorship, Cap League, Robotics, and Track, and I am honored to be here.
Wow, robotics and track. Do you have time to, how do you even have time to do this panel, Elijah? I don't even understand. Thank you so much for your time tonight, Elijah. And now let's get to our candidates. I want to make sure everyone please remain muted. All of our viewers, please remain muted because we want to hear from these leaders who are going to have a major role in District 202 in shaping our youth. So we're going to start with the incumbents. We have the Vice President of D202, Monique Parsons. Monique, you have 60 seconds. Let the world know who you are.
Thank you. Well, first I want to thank you, Malika, for convening us and allowing the community to hear from us. Thank you to the guest panelists and CNW Market. And in full disclosure, I have a niece who was one of the founders of Evanston Fight for Black Lives. So I went, hey, Sarah. So Sarah's not the niece, but I want to be, I want to be upfront. So who am I? So a couple of months ago, my board colleagues and I participated in a school board and self-evaluation retreat. The facilitator asked all of us a question. The question was, what is it that we like about being on the school board? My answer had 2 words: our students. So my why is not that complicated. Every student, I believe, deserves the best education that Evanston Township has to offer, regardless of their gender identity, regardless of their race, their immigration status, their ethnicity, their ability, their income, the block they live on, how they show up at school, the clothes they wear, the hairstyle they rock, the parents they come from, the language they speak, the church they attend or not, where they work, where their parents work or graduated from, or their political status. It doesn't matter to me. They all deserve someone that keeps them in center of their mind, especially when it comes to making decisions. So what matters most to me is the unseen are seen, and the town that I love sees the students that I love more as theirs. So until that happens, I'm committed to serving our youth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monique. Next, we have incumbent Liz Rolowitz.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Malika, for hosting us tonight. And I'm so glad to see everybody here tonight. My name is Liz Rolowitz. I am finishing up almost 4 years of serving on the school board. Some of the work that we've been doing the last few years was working through an unprecedented pandemic, for one, and everything that went along with that, with remote learning and mental health issues that were a result of remote learning. And then we also had to choose and hire a new superintendent. Dr. Witherspoon retired. We set out to reach out to the community and seek everybody's input on what type of superintendent they would like to see. And I was really happy with the amount of information we were able to get back from the community and from stakeholders. And we had a very thorough interview process, and we ultimately chose Dr. Marcus Campbell to be our superintendent. So that's something that I'm really proud of. And, I'm on the board because I want to make all of the opportunities at ETHS available to all students, with a particular focus on our most vulnerable students. I think that we have so much going for us and so many successes that there's really no reason why all of our students can't achieve and obtain at the highest levels. And so I just continue to advocate for them and hope that we can see some progress in some of our most marginalized students, and keep doing the work every day. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much, Liz. Next, we have Kristen Scotty, candidate Kristen Scotty.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Malika and Mr. and Mrs. Weaver, CNW Market, for this forum. I am Kristen Scotty. I'm finishing up my PhD in material science at Northwestern. And I'm running because I believe that this board needs disability representation. I am disabled and actively involved in the disability community. Disabled students at ETHS show the poorest academic outcomes and the highest discipline rates. These data are often not acknowledged or discussed. The greatest impact is felt by disabled students with intersecting marginalized identities, including Black and Brown students, LGBTQ students, English language learners, low-income students, and unhoused students, all of whom are overrepresented within the disability community. There's additional overlap within these groups. I'm looking to bring disability representation to the board. I'm also looking to promote a more intersectional approach to equity work. As a scientist, I also understand how to work with, analyze, and interpret data. And I also have experience teaching, mentoring, and developing STEM curriculum. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you. And then we have Leah Pygars.
Picars. Close.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Malika, and thank you, CNW Market, for this opportunity and for hosting this. My name is Leah Picars, and I'm running for the school board because I really want to serve my community, and I want to be part of helping guide ETHS to reaching its goals and its potential. I strongly believe that a high school that provides our students with an equitable and excellent education is integral to the health of our community as a whole. I also believe that all students deserve an honest and inclusive education. I retired as an ETHS counselor just in June, but I feel that my work isn't done, and I believe that I'm in a unique position to be able to advocate for the students of ETHS based on a wealth of firsthand experience in education. My background is that I worked as a high school Spanish teacher for 7 years. I was a high school counselor for 21, and 12 of those years I served as the ETHS lead counselor. I also was elected to 6 3-year terms on Teachers Council Executive Committee and served on 2 contract negotiations teams. So I've really been able to see many different aspects of the school and how it functions and how it's serving our students. I feel that I really know this high school, and I know a lot about high school education. I think there are still many issues and challenges facing ETHS, and but my highest priorities are really focus on racial equity and inclusion, college and career readiness, and school safety.
Okay, thank you so much, Leah. All right, we're going to get to it. So the first question I ask in all my forums, because I find it very interesting when the candidates ask each other one question. You see who softballs it, who really goes in. I mean, I just feel like you get to know them a little bit more. So I want each candidate to pick an opponent and ask that opponent one question. And the opponent gets 60 seconds to respond to that question. And I will allow for one follow-up question if you need some clarity. And any of our panelists, if you need some clarity to whatever the response is, feel free to jump in there and ask. And then I'm going to open it up to our special guest panelists with their questions, and then we're going to open it up to the residents and hear from the people. All right, so let's see. The first person we will call on, we'll start with the incumbents. So we'll start with Liz. Please pick an opponent and ask that candidate a question. 60 seconds for the response.
Okay, I'm going to ask Leah Picars a question. Leah, when we look at measurements such as graduation rate, extracurricular involvement, and student attendance, we see that our students with IEPs fare worse than any other demographic. What would you do as a board member to make sure that our students with IEPs are able to achieve to their highest ability?
Okay. I think it's important that as a board, we would, or if I were there, consistently really review the data on those types of metrics with students with IEPs, and really how are we doing on the implementation and compliance with their IEPs and the effectiveness in setting and meeting IEP goals. I think it's really important that we involve the voices of the staff and students in special ed in our feedback and in reviewing how well we're doing, and making sure that we have an understanding of the student experience and that student voice and student perspective. I think that I think that it's really important to invest the district money in paraprofessionals, SPED transition services, and making sure that our gen ed teachers have the training and support to implement IEP and 504 accommodations so that we bolster the achievement and success of students with IEPs.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Liz. Okay. Leah,
Okay.
pick an opponent and ask them a question. 60 seconds.
Okay. I'd like to ask Monique a question. Monique, given that you're the veteran here, you've been on the board for a long time, I'd like to ask you, what do you think is really the thing that's been the most, or is currently the most pressing challenge facing the District 202 board at this time?
Yeah, so I think the most pressing challenge is the opportunity and the achievement gap that continues to be persistent. Not only is it persistent, but it's clear that race is a predictor of those gaps. And so, you know, that's what I think has been our main issue. We are constantly, regardless of how our Black students engage, especially our Black boys, they continue to be at the lowest of that gap. It doesn't matter if they're engaged. It doesn't matter if they're an athlete. It doesn't matter if they participate in any other extracurricular activity. They still fall at the bottom. So I would say that, you know, unfortunately, that is the issue that continues to be very pressing for ETHS and our community.
Thank you.
Good question, Leah. Good question. Okay, Monique, pick an opponent.
Yeah, Leah. Leah, you're a guidance counselor, and this is money right here. So you've been a guidance counselor for a very long time at ETHS,
Yes.
retired.
Yes.
And I have often asked staff, what additional support do our counselors need in order to support our students, especially our Black and Brown students, particularly our Black boys? In your opinion, what would be your response to that question? So what supports are needed? And what would you have done differently looking back?
The second part of that question is particularly interesting. I think that one of the things I would have done differently is I wish I would have had the opportunity and the wisdom to interrogate myself sooner in my career about what my inherent biases perhaps were, or how I might be interacting differently without even realizing it with my Black and Brown students. I think that I would like to believe that I became more effective and more helpful as a counselor as I learned more about that and owned that. And I think that it's really important to, this isn't necessarily a need, but I think
20 seconds.
I was asking a question, but I think that counselors, they need to have the ability to be challenged to really, sorry, I got a little nervous with the timing. We have to, I'm so sorry. Time. Okay. Sorry. I'll have to answer the rest of that question later. I had a really good thought.
Thank you.
Okay, you want to wrap it up? I'll give you 15 seconds to wrap it up. When our timekeeper says time, you have 15 seconds to wrap it up.
I think that that trust is really important, particularly when it comes to, let's say, white counselors working with students of color. And I think that we have to continue to be supported in developing relationships and understanding what it means to have respectful, empowering relationships and to build trust with students.
Okay, good question, Monique. All right. Did anyone have a follow-up to that? I guess not.
Will you just explain how the follow-ups work again? Sorry.
If you need her to elaborate, or you need some clarity if you didn't understand.
And I'm allowed to ask, Malika?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is just more about, and it's not necessary for Leah, it's for all of the candidates, more about systemic change and structural racism. So not so much about what any one individual is doing. I think qualitatively seeing real underrepresentation of Black students on things that are celebrated publicly in the school, whether it's chess club, whether it's certain sports like lacrosse, whether it's band and orchestra. At this day and age, in the 21st century in Evanston, there's an obvious lack of representation for Black students. So that to me is a structural problem of the entire building. And my question there is, what's been going on? Why is access still such a problem for Black students at ETHS in 2023?
Okay, since Leah was answering that, we'll toss that to Leah, and then we need to get Kristen a question from Leah to Kristen.
I think that students have to feel seen and heard and that they belong in spaces and feel safe. And I think that, there isn't a technical solution, but I think this is a real issue of culture and climate. And it's about us all acting on our beliefs. I think that we talk a lot about equity, and I'm owning this myself. But what does that really look like, and what does it mean in terms of your actions? And I think that also students want to see themselves in activities and things. It's hard to feel that you are truly belong and you're welcome and you're expecting
20 seconds.
You see yourself doing an activity when you just don't see yourself in that setting. So I think it's very layered and tricky, but we have to look at those realities.
Thank you.
Okay. That was a great question, Max, and we'll circle back to that so that everyone can answer. We're going to get through this first question. Kristen wasn't picked, so I'm going to pick Kristen to pick someone to ask a question.
Yeah, sure. So I don't think Liz was picked either.
Was Liz
okay,
not?
So
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I don't think so. Okay, Liz, what board policy change over your nearly 4 years of service did you most support, and why?
Oh, that's a great question. I feel like some of the work we've done with our LGBTQIA students has been great as far as creating the student advocacy form where students can change their name and pronouns, to creating the gender support plans, and creating the all gender PE classes for freshman year. I feel like the school is really working through that as it comes up, and they're continually working towards creating a more inclusive environment for LGBTQIA students, and I really support that.
Okay. Thank you for that, Kristen. All right, Liz. Did you pick someone already, Liz?
I already picked, yeah.
You picked someone. Okay, so I think that's it for that round of questions. Thank you. Those are some good questions, actually. I hate it when the candidates softball the questions. Those I think those were very telling, very, very telling. Okay, so we're going to open it up to our special guests to ask their questions. So we're going to start with, since Max started it off, we'll start with Max Weinberg.
Do you want me to repeat, or I can move on? Or no preference?
If you want to hear from all the candidates for that question, feel free. Otherwise, you can present another question.
I'll restate it. I'm going to just add a little twist on it because I also teach pre-service teachers, and I know a lot of you on the call are familiar with Goldie Muhammad's work on cultivating genius. her research on Black literary societies of the 1800s. And I think my question for the candidates is, what does leading with Black brilliance mean to you? Dr. Goldie Muhammad talks about 5 pursuits of brilliance and excellence, and really requires looking deeply at curriculum and all opportunities that allow children to feel a sense of belonging and allow adults to show up as learners of students. I keep talking about 2023 because in the era of pandemic, I think innovation is necessary. So my question to you all is, what does it mean to hold a school accountable for ensuring that Black brilliance is a part of the ETHS identity?
Woo. That's a deep question. All right, who do you want to address that to first, Max?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just looking at my screen and I see Liz is right next to me. So Liz Rolowitz.
Thank you for that question. As far as cultivating Black brilliance, I feel like we have to continue to expand our racial offerings in terms of like the Black Student Caucus and summits like Black Student Summit, things like that, that create that affinity space and that inclusive space where students can be themselves and be surrounded by Black brilliance and learn from other brilliant Black people and for the spokespeople that come and talk to them and the teachers and the advisors. So I think creating a more inclusive culture, I believe it's a cultural thing as well.
20 seconds.
I think that we just need to create a more inclusive culture for our Black and Brown students.
How do you go about creating? We always say that we got to create more of an inclusive environment. I mean, what does that mean exactly?
I just think creating
and what did you do? What did you do during your term to make that happen, you yourself?
I mean, I've supported every initiative that the school has come up with as far as racial equity work. And when I talk about an inclusive space, I think it's just creating a space where Black and Brown students want to be and where they feel included, and creating relevant spaces for them. And, you know, whether it's in curriculum or in extracurriculars, creating a relevant space to them personally and their cultural backgrounds is the best way I think we can create that inclusion.
Thank you.
Okay. Next person to answer that question. Who wants to jump in there?
I'll jump in.
Okay.
So I'm not familiar with the author, but I'll tell you what it means to me. It means making sure that there's representation. It also means cultivating a community that sees Blackness first and foremost. We live in a very diverse but deeply segregated community that gets diversity when they want it. And so our children see that, our students see that. It also means having high expectations for everyone that comes into contact with our Black students. It means creating an environment that Black students feel seen, heard, appreciated, and valued. Accountability, it also means hiring a Black superintendent.
20 seconds.
That is an example of what it means to be brilliant in Blackness. But accountability is making sure that as school board members, we don't only show up in Black spaces when it's time to talk equity or when we need a vote. It means that we value and we appreciate Black people that live in Evanston. So we're going to be uncomfortable being in those spaces where they exist.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monique. Who else would like to jump in there?
I'll go next. I agree with everything that's already been said. I think that we also, in general, have to expand what we think of as brilliance. I think that a lot of the efforts that we see is to push for more diversity in AP classes, for example. And first of all, diversity does not equate to inclusion, right? A lot of these spaces aren't actually safe spaces for these students. So first we need to actually make those environments safe as well, because Black students absolutely belong in AP classes. But also, not all sorts of brilliance are shown in AP classes. We have to understand that very, very smart students often don't do well in AP classes at all, and we have to provide environments where their intelligence and their brilliance can shine as well. So we really need to foster these environments where all of these students can shine.
Okay, thank you so much, Kristen. Thank you. All right, and we have Leah.
Okay. I think it's really important that in fostering and embracing Black brilliance, that students increasingly see themselves in the curriculum, see themselves represented, and in terms of history, in terms of what they read, and in terms of everything. And I also think this is where ETHS's efforts to hire and retain faculty of color, and in this example, Black faculty, is really important. That again is important for not just for Black students, but for all students to see in terms of who their teachers are and what their education is about. I think that in AP classes, I think it's really important how teachers show up, and do they explicitly, is it explicitly clear that they have high expectations, the same high expectations for students, and everyone needs to know and feel that. Time. Okay.
You get 15 seconds to.
Oh, sorry. And I think that we have to work get away from having a deficit mindset. While we have to be really honest about the gap in outcomes that we see, I think that language matters, and talking about it as a gap in academic opportunities and outcomes as opposed to an achievement gap is an important language difference. We have to focus on what people are capable of.
Okay, thank you, Leah. That was a great question, Max. Thank you. Our next special guest will be Dr. Perlow.
Okay, can I combine two of my questions?
Sure.
Okay, this is going to be a long introduction, so I'm just warning you, this is how academics do. We're just really obnoxiously long-winded. Okay, according to District 202's board policy manual, the district is, okay, let me just preface this. There's a lot of stuff in the board policy manual about like bullying among students, but this is really directed towards teachers, administrators, staff, okay? According to District 202's board policy manual, the district is committed to fostering a safe, supportive learning environment where students feel respected and valued, will not tolerate harassing, intimidating conduct or bullying that unreasonably interferes with the student's educational performance or that creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive educational environment, and, bear with me, teachers shall not use disciplinary methods that may be damaging to students, such as ridicule, sarcasm, or excessive temper displays. Yet these behaviors are rampant in the district. Research has shown that Black students within the district are disproportionately surveilled, harassed, and disciplined by teachers, staff, and administrators alike. This environment often feels more like jail than school, even among high-achieving Black students. So my question is, what does safety mean to you? And how do you suggest creating an educational environment that does not harm students?
Whoa, I picked a fabulous panel. Let me just say that. Okay, Dr. Polo, who do you want to direct that to first?
Can anybody can take it? Is that okay? Like,
Okay.
can I get some takers?
I'll take it. I'll take
okay.
it. Okay. First of all, what does safety mean? Safety is being seen. Do we get 2 minutes for this or 1 minute?
Let's give that one 2 minutes.
Okay.
Let's give that one 2 minutes.
Safety is being seen, being heard, being able to, if you're feeling unsafe, being able to say that, knowing that you're going to be heard and the person is going to listen and try to change their approach. So first I want to acknowledge that I understand that the behaviors that you referenced in that question are indeed occurring and that there's a lack of accountability. I also want to acknowledge that what we know about in terms of these behaviors is a fraction of what's happening due to the nature of the power dynamics at play. I think that the question takes language from a couple of policies, which is probably the first thing that I would look at to address this specifically. The safe, supportive learning environment, that comes from the school wellness and the social emotional learning, I think. Whereas the will not tolerate harassment language is coming from the harassment of students policy. The examples of prohibited conduct that are in that harassment policy include things like name calling and physical violence. Well, it's important to call those things out, of course. The average person, I think, kind of understands that conduct like that won't be tolerated. Microaggressions, for example, are far more common and extremely harmful to students' mental health. But there's no explicit connection between prohibited behaviors and the impacts on mental health. In that social emotional learning policy, there's language that creates space for professional development related to social emotional learning, but it's really more directed to teaching about SEL to students. I think we need explicit language about less obvious forms of oppressive language with examples and direction for professional development. This is where I would go first. There's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done here, but that's where I would go first.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kristen.
Can I hear from that answer also from Monique?
Of course. So I got your first question. What does safety mean? What was this? Can you state the second one again?
What does safety mean to you, and how do you suggest creating an educational environment that does not harm students? And this is with the assumption that students are currently being harmed.
Right. So, when I first, just listening to this question, when I first read this question, I was stunned. Because you use the word rampant, and that type of behavior being described gives me a visual that I can't imagine. And I'm stunned because I haven't heard about it as a board member. I have staff that have students at the high school. I have family members that I have students at the high school. I have church members. So when I hear that, it shocks me into wanting to ask a lot of questions first and foremost, so I could get more understanding. Of course, I know the policy. The policy is available to everyone. You can Google it. So we could Google it and break it apart. I get it. I'm most concerned about the feeling of not being safe. So safe means to me, or safety means to me, it's a feeling. And it's a feeling that most Black people don't have in general. We don't live in that environment. But in ETHS, what I have heard and what I have experienced is that students feel safe inside ETHS. but don't have or don't feel safe in the community or in our certain parts of our community. So I'm deeply concerned, and I have many questions to ask you about that. I'm not going to shoot off and say this, that, and the other, because I'm stuck on the environment you just painted. So the short answer would be that I would seek more information. I would ask more questions. I would make a plan and hold the superintendent accountable as to why that environment is existing.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, who would like to answer that question?
I'll go. So honestly, I also was really taken aback when I read your question, because I too have not heard about it, at least through my board work. So I was very upset when I read it, reading that it's so prevalent and happening so much. I guess my first thing would just be to offer the advice to the students. See if you can find a trusted adult, whether it's a parent or a guardian or a school social or counselor, and see if you can have someone back you, and reaching out to the administration to detail what's happened, but then also CCing the board so that we're aware, because we need to hear this kind of stuff. And we need to know what's going on with the students. I mean, my idea of safety is a sense of belonging and knowing that you're in your space, you belong to be there, you're safe, no one's going to harm you. And I know that that's probably a challenge for a lot of our students in the high school. But that is, I think, the goal of the high school, is to make sure that students feel like they belong. So if students are feeling harassed and intimidated, I can see how a lot of the commentary might not fall directly under district policy, but I understand how it feels to know that something's not right and something came across wrong and something felt hurtful or offensive, but it's kind of hard to describe. And those are the kinds of things that still need attention paid to them. But again, I think we need to just hear a little bit more about it so that we can help.
Thank you.
Can I follow up at all?
Yes.
Okay. There's been so much research on this. I just cannot imagine that the board does not know about it. Even we have a panelist here, Sarah Bogan, right? You were part of this Evanston Fight for Black Lives that did a whole survey on this that showed this data. So I'm stunned to hear that you're not aware that students at District 202 do not feel safe and policed. It's very, very well known. I'm getting private chats with people saying their kids don't feel safe, and that, on this, that they don't feel safe and they feel policed. And then with the escalation of all those safeties, I mean, how do you think that makes students feel? And every piece of research across the nation shows that more policing of students make them feel less safe. So I really don't understand the lack of awareness around this. I'm sorry. And
Can I respond? So I understand policing. I
policing in
that
a figurative sense, not in the actual having actual police. Policing is a verb.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that. As I listened to your question, you stated that this behavior was rampant inside the school. And I'm saying to you what I would say to another parent that came to me as a school board member and said, hey, this is what's happening. This is what I'm hearing. this is what my student is experiencing, I would ask questions. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying I have a lot of questions to ask so that I could figure out how to get to the bottom of it. The fact of the matter is we are school board members. We don't see everything. We don't hear everything. So in order for, and that's why we have to be accessible, because we have to be able to be reached by parents and by staff and by students who have things to say to us. So I'm not doubting it. I'm just honestly answering your question, saying I would want to know more. And getting that information would allow me to use that information to dig deeper. That's all. That's my response. I understand policing. I'm on the discipline committee. I understand that totally, but I want to know more. I simply just want to know more.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Perlow, did you have a follow-up?
No, I don't want to take, I can take up the whole thing. I'm not going to do it.
Oh, okay. Okay. And Leah, have you answered this question?
I have not.
Okay.
So I think that I had a reaction to the word rampant in a slightly different way. So I've been inside the high school, and I would say that it's kind of commonly known that people, if you make a generality, students experience discipline differently, often by race. That is unfortunately, I mean, that is part of the culture. And I think it's something we have to constantly address and look at. I think that when part of the question said that focused on teachers using disciplinary methods that damage students, like ridicule, sarcasm, excessive temper, that I felt like, gosh, in my personal experience, I haven't thought of that as rampant. But this is where we have the expression perception is sometimes reality. And so what I'm saying is the analogy I wanted to make is whether rampant is the correct word or not, if that's people's perception, if that's what they're experiencing and they feel that it's rampant, that's a problem. I think that this is where the district's work and development of restorative practices has to be real, and we have to carry it out with fidelity. I think that's a move that's really important. And I think that it's important that all faculty and staff are trained in restorative practices, and again, are reflective about their current practices. My understanding is we are in some really concrete ways moving in that direction. There'll now be a new restorative practice coordinator in the dean's office, and I think that that's really important. I think in terms of what safety is, like many have said, I think students' safety is about feeling physically safe and emotionally safe. And I think that there's technical fixes to the physical safety, but for the emotional safety, students need to have their identities affirmed. They need to feel heard. They need to feel seen. They need to be valued. And they need to feel like they have that space in school.
Hi.
And we always have to address what's happening not only in school, but outside of school as well with them.
Okay, Dr. Perlow, that was, I guess, a hot topic because, yeah, I'm getting messages from people in the chat as well that that was a very, very valid question. So I guess the board needs to follow up on that, see what the hell is actually going on in the school. We definitely want our kids to feel safe. I mean, once they graduate, reality really hits then about who the world is. Wow. Okay, you know what? Elijah, our ETHS student. Elijah, actually, I would love to hear your take on that last question and the responses. And then I want you to ask the candidates a question.
Hello. I would say in terms of safety within the school and in terms of just like how, in terms of just like discipline in general, I would say in my classes, there's only been a handful of discipline issues. and they've mostly just been dealt with by like a teacher taking a student to the hallway and talking to them. In terms of physical safety, like safeties themselves always being in the hallway, I've never personally had an issue, but I know of a handful of friends who have had like issues with safeties and like in terms of just like just having like overall issues with them and them kind of being interrogated unfairly and things like that in comparison to other students. But that's really my only experience in terms of like safety within the schools, in terms of physical safety and in terms of like how teachers decide to handle discipline within the classrooms. Yeah.
Interrogation.
That's a little bit of a harsh word. I guess they're just like just getting asked like, oh, where's your hall pass at? More so than other students, or like, oh, where's your bathroom pass at? Things like that. I guess, yeah, just being asked like those kinds of questions.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to make clear what students get interrogated and what students don't?
I would say primarily, at least from what I've heard of, this happens a lot when we're talking, just like talking about during track practices. So it tends to be a lot more black male students who are kind of like, oh, I had to deal with the safety today. It was being really annoying, and he like wouldn't see my path and things like that, and they would have to like kind of have to explain their way for some reason into, oh, I just had to use the bathroom, but now I'm kind of like standing here trying to explain which class I came from and trying to remember the teacher's name and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying other students, they don't have those kind of stories?
I would say I haven't heard those kind of stories. They might not be in my friend group, so to speak. I just know that it is. I just know that it's a relevant problem within the people that I talk to, and it happens on a semi-frequent basis.
Okay, thank you for that, Elijah. It's good to hear from the students. No reason for them to tell a fib or a story or anything. They're telling you what's real inside those walls. So Elijah, let's hear your question for the candidates.
My question for the candidates is, this is a bit of an interjection. As a student who takes primarily honors, AP, and college level classes, I've noticed that as the level of rigor within those classes goes up, the number of Black students has tended to go down throughout my years at ETHS. And it's gotten to a point where currently I only have one Black teacher and only a handful of other Black students within my honors and AP classes. And so my question to really anyone who would like to answer is, what would you like to do, or what would you like to work towards in order to increase the number and representation of Black students within honors and AP classes?
Who do you want to direct that to?
Anyone, really, whoever feels like they want to answer first, I suppose.
Okay. Candidates, who wants to take that question first?
I'll take that question. I think that how students start high school is really important, that freshman and sophomore year experience. So I applaud and think we have to bolster and expand upon our work with providing access to the honors and AP classes. I think that our model with pathways to honors classes is really important, so that students aren't, I think we've been doing that so that from the start students aren't tracked and then they don't get to the higher level classes. I think that one of the realities is that there is often this gap in academic outcomes that is already apparent when students reach the high school. Our locus of control isn't what happens in District 65, but I think we have to continue to articulate so that our students come in and they're more prepared in terms of accessing the challenging curriculum. And we have to continue our own measures because there are students and we have things that we're doing in terms of supports. And okay, sorry, I talk too much.
Know that when our timekeeper says time, you have 15 seconds to wrap it up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not getting that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you can finish your point.
Okay. A specific example is my understanding, for instance, is within Team ASAP, there is a Black leadership group in there, and I think there are things like that that are really important, because my understanding is that they have talked to teachers about what it's like to be a Black student in AP classes and what a supportive environment looks like, and that's where student voice and experience is really important, and we need to elevate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, Elijah. Which candidate would like to take this next? Kristen.
Yeah, I think that, I said a little bit of this with the last question, but I think that we have to look at, first, I would say that I don't think that AP classes is should be the standard of, academic achievement. I think that we have to widen our definition of achievement. But with that said, Black students do belong in AP classes. And I think that, integration of student voice is important, but we actually have to do something with it. We have been hearing from Black students on how the lack of inclusivity in AP classes for a really long time. And I don't know, we're still hearing about it. So we need some changes. We need, I don't know, professional development for the teachers, or changing in the, I know the curriculum is in large part based on, the College Board, and the College Board has a racism problem as well. So this feeds into it. But yeah, we need to actually be doing something with student voice to make changes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Who's next?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I am often concerned about Black students not being in AP or not making it through AP classes. So my question has always been, what happens, or what do we know about the Black student that tried AP, but for whatever reason left that class? And I believe it has a lot to do with the environment of not feeling welcomed or belonging in that space. It has a lot to do with feeling marginalized, where, questions are asked that the Black student is supposed to answer that, that affects them directly, and they're the only Black student in that classroom, so there's no support there. And so, of course, they're not feeling comfortable in those classes. I think it is a gateway to higher ed, but I don't think that that's the only way to higher education. So first of all, I think there needs to be more representation of teachers that teach AP classes. And I think that we need to, really look at the course of bringing students in so that they feel like that class belongs to them as well as their counterparts. And I don't think we do a good job with that.
Thank you.
Monique, when you say you guys don't do a good job, I've been hearing this type of question for a really long time.
Yep.
And we just keep hearing they don't know what to do, or we need to do a better job. What does that mean to do?
I don't think I don't think it's that they don't know what to do. I think that the efforts we've tried to implement don't work. And so they are trying to, do things different, like peer relationships, like having other Black students that are in AP classes speak to other Black students, like starting as young as middle school, trying to talk about it, adding an AP African American Studies class. So I think that they're doing things, but it's not attracting our Black students. And for whatever reason, they don't feel comfortable in those classes. We heard from Black students who said that they tried AP classes, but they stopped midway. So I have always, asked and challenged and held our previous administration accountable to figuring out why that is. Why are they leaving? What are they saying that the environment is not doing? So it does require us to continue to work it out. but the things that we have tried to implement, they're just not showing the type of results that we want fast enough, or they're not being steady. So it's not a complete, like, we haven't done anything. We're not giving up.
Right.
It's just that it's not working.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Sorry, Dr. Pearl. I just want to thank Elijah for speaking so honestly, and there are schools that are almost 100% Black and Brown students that have really successful AP and honors programs full of Black and Brown students. And I guess just to be more pointed to the candidates, would you support affinity groupings of Black and Brown students in AP honors classes so that Elijah doesn't have to be the one and only? And I also want to connect it back to my initial question of brilliance comes in many forms. So when we use a really narrow version of what excellence is, kids like my kid who's dyslexic, which the board has really not ever responded to or chosen to take on in the past, dyslexics get left out. And there are plenty of genius dyslexics who change the world. So my pointed question is, would you support, would the board be willing to take a stance on, we are protecting spaces of excellence for Black and Brown students that lead to much bigger opportunities like you were talking about?
Yes, I would support our administrator coming to the board saying this is an effort that we want to try out. Just as our board has supported affinity groups and summits for students, I would support that as well.
And I would just add that this is something that we can expand upon, because right now we do have an affinity space AP calculus AB class, as well as I believe the pre-calculus class. In the past, not as far as I know currently, but we had an AP literature and language senior affinity space class. So it is something that we've done a bit of, but I think it's a good thing to look further at for sure.
And I don't want to lose, it sounds minor, it's not. Black students with IEPs have historically not been able to access those classes. So affinity groups that are truly inclusive and intersectional for Black and Brown students.
Yeah, I acknowledge that.
Okay. I was gonna speak on a personal experience. I'm totally understanding this question, because AP classes weren't always offered to all of us. It'd be one that's given that opportunity. I get it. And that was way back in my day.
Can I follow up?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this also is very personal to me. a daughter, also currently either one of the only or the only student in her AP class. But I want to bring it back to freshman year, where I was told by a prominent administrator that by a prominent administrator in District 202, he told me that ETHS got rid of tracking and was very proud of that. And I had to chuckle, and I was like, how? How so? And he was referring to the earned honors situation. And he also said that, well, ETHS, we have our issues, but we do better than, most of the CPS high schools, this, that, and the other. And I had to laugh again, because what metrics are you using when it comes to that? Because lowering the bar to earned honors does not mean that you have gotten rid of tracking by any stretch of the imagination, and your numbers say so. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as Max Weinberg has pointed out, many of these Black and Brown majority schools have these classes, have honors classes, have AP classes where students are excelling. So when I see things in the chat and when I hear things, excuses, to me, excuses being made about why ETHS can't get themselves together in this area, it's obviously that they're not engaging in best practices, because they could learn a lot from CPS and other schools that have been successful in these areas. And the fact that ETHS, with all the resources that they have, cannot, I'm seeing in the chat someone asking about home, are these kids being supported at home? And that is offensive, because are they being supported at home in these majority Black, again, it's the deficit notion of blaming Black and brown parents. That's really what I'm seeing with that. So I just want to say, and then one administrator, the same administrator, told me that, oh, my daughter's going to do fine. She just needs to get better friends. Again, deficit-minded administrators, whether they are Black, which this one was, or any other color, are problematic. And that I attribute that to one of the reasons why our Black and brown kids are not excelling more. And I have always told my daughter that, she is achieving despite ETHS, just like the book, despite the best intentions. She is achieving despite ETHS, not because they take a lot of credit for some of for the achievement, because most of these students come from higher than average socioeconomic backgrounds. So I just want, I don't know if that was a question, maybe.
Can I say something?
Yes, absolutely.
I really want to have a conversation with you, Olivia, Dr. Perlow. This is the complexity of Evanston Township, and I'm not making excuses. I'm just talking about a town that I was born and raised in. We have some students that are achieving in spite of, right? We have those that are not achieving at all. And there's this spectrum, there's this long spectrum that we're trying to figure out how to make sure all our students are achieving. That's the complexity that we are struggling with at Evanston Township High School. I have a niece that's a biochemist major that's graduating from North Carolina A&T in a couple of months that took 5 AP classes at Evanston Township. I don't know how she did it. I have a son that wouldn't take one. And so I'm trying, this is what this is what we're dealing with, and this is what we have to figure out. And it is very challenging and difficult. And I'm just saying that because I know the complexity and I know how challenging it is, and I want to figure it out. And we need help figuring it out.
I have a question.
Okay.
And this can be directed towards anyone. But just this kind of ties in, and it's going back to safety, because I think if we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can't even get to talking about kids being in certain classes if they don't feel like they belong or should be in a space. So in 2021, the Moran Center put out a report evaluating reimagining school safety and the negative impacts of having SROs in the high school. I'd like to talk about SROs and the safety department. But according to this report, Black students are 3 times more likely to be arrested at the high school compared to their white counterparts, directly related to SROs. They're also directly related to students of color and students with disability and the prison to school to prison pipeline. So I just want to ask how you will prioritize a restorative justice approach to discipline, what your thoughts on SROs in the school are. Yeah, and just Elijah, thank you for speaking up. I feel like I was in the high school 2 seconds ago, and I can very much attest to the rampant disproportionate discipline towards Black students. I think largely in part, I think the safety department is one of the most interactive groups with students. And so assessing how they're trained, what their understanding of DEI is, how they're connecting with teachers, how they're all connecting with admin to make sure, I don't know, that's kind of a rant, but basically, how are you going to prioritize a restorative justice approach to discipline, and what are your thoughts on SROs in the school system?
Let's start with Liz. She didn't get an opportunity to answer the last question because the last question got very interesting. So we'll start with Liz. If you could take both questions.
Sure.
60 seconds.
So I think you're right when it comes to safety. The safety staff does interact a lot with our students, and then we also have teacher referrals as well. And we do know that Black students have more referrals than their white counterparts. And I think that as far as the SROs go, I feel like the SROs we have in the building do have a really good understanding of our students. And they've built relationships with our students. But I also did read the Moran report as well, so I understand that, like, nationally speaking, SROs often do more harm than good.
20 seconds.
And I think one of the other alternatives would be that if the police were called, then they would send any officer as opposed to an SRO who already knows our kids, and there's a higher risk of a random officer arriving who doesn't know our kids and doesn't know the situation and then interacting with our students as well.
Time.
Okay, who else would like to take that question? Great question, Sarah. Great question.
I'll take the question. I think that, you know, at ETHS, I think that there are, not all, but there are many in the community who have a real healthy respect for our particular SROs as individuals. But I think that that's, and I applaud that. I mean, we've got some folks that people really think do a good job in that role. But I think the issue is bigger because I think the risk for that not being a positive is much greater. And I think that we have to really interrogate, you know, when we're at the point where the majority of stakeholders feel that the negatives outweigh the positives of the presence of SROs, that's something we have to really be honest with ourselves about. And I also read the Moran report, and the reality is that ideally, I believe the SROs would be working with and employing restorative interventions. But I think that just their very presence means that they kind of unnecessarily, because of their presence, maybe more so involved in policing or investigating or arresting. And it really escalates things. And I think that it seems like everything tells us that as people of color, the negative feeling of policing by having SROs is more likely to be disproportionately experienced by students who are marginalized.
Thank you.
Yeah, I read the Moran report. I've also looked deeply at the discipline data and the overlap with race and disability. And I really encourage people to look at that because the risk ratios are disgusting, just disgusting. Black with an IEP, our suspensions are ridiculous. I don't even understand how we're saying we have a restorative justice program. I legit don't understand. Our students, it's no wonder why they don't feel like they belong because they're being told that they don't.
20 seconds.
No, I don't support SROs in schools. I don't support suspensions. I don't support exclusionary discipline of any kind. This is enough. It's got to stop, and we have to put an end to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a challenging topic for me. I said earlier, I serve on the discipline committee. I raised this issue of SROs to the committee from the board because I'm not comfortable with triggering our Black students further. And that's what that presence does. And so I'm torn with that, and I'm torn with guns in schools. So I'm trying to figure out what the balance is, because no, if I had it my way, and I'm one person on a board, there are 6, 7 of us that have to vote.
20 seconds.
If I had it my way, they wouldn't be inside that environment because I know the trigger they present. But I am concerned about what has been entering our schools and what's been happening in our community. And I want our students to feel that like they can come to school and not be triggered by police or be concerned that there's weapons inside our school.
I have a follow-up.
Yes.
Just that when we talked about that, I remember when the Moran Center, when we presented to the board in
Yeah.
I think it was last year, I don't know. But we talked about how the response time from the SROs to get from their office to any point in the school where a gun would likely be is the same, if not longer, than it would take the police that are not in the building to get there.
Right.
And I also, so I question the rationale of whether they're preventing violence or, you know, a reaction to it. So I guess I don't know if that's a question. I just wanted to put that out there, that I don't know that maybe if we were getting big picture talking about all of the funding that our police department is getting, if that was going into the community, what that might do to prevent students from bringing guns into school in the first place.
Well, and
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, it is a deeper conversation to have because it requires many layers to unpack. And no, there is no rationale for that comparison. It is what it is, right? It's facts that if it didn't matter if they were there or outside, that the response time would be the same. But it is a feeling of, if they're in the building, that things would be eliminated, you know, or caught or prevented. And that's the concern that is sort of present. And I'm just being honest with you, it's hard with me. I mean, it is really hard with me to have them there, which is why that group was convened, which is why the Moran Center was even invited to that subgroup, because I invited them. So it is a difficult situation, and I'm still trying to grapple with it. And personally, I'm not there, and I'm not in full support of them being there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Wow, these are some questions that's going to be on my mind all night. So our next special guest is Shelley Gates.
Hi, everybody. So I'm going to switch the topic a little bit because, as many of you know, I have a very specific interest in post-high school readiness for students. And I would like to ask all the candidates some of their perspective on college and career readiness, which is a national focus, Illinois involved as well. And just to, as a little, like a point of interest for many people who are not aware, the school does keep track through the National Student Clearinghouse, our data on college going of our students. And Dr. Bavis did report at a recent board meeting that based on the statistics from the National Student Clearinghouse, approximately 40% of students in a particular ETHS graduating class do not complete a college degree within 6 years of graduating. That is an enormous number of young people who leave our high school and they do not graduate from college within 6 years of graduating. And Dr. Bavis admitted in the meeting that ETHS does not have information on what happens to the rest of those students. And I am a huge proponent of everything to help students understand multiple pathways to success. I felt my usual frustration at the discourse we're having about AP. AP is not the answer. AP is a money-making machine for the College Board. I mean, I know that's my opinion, but I just feel like there's so much more to education than AP classes, which I know many of you agree. But I guess my question is, how do you feel about that information about the percentage of young people who leave our high school and do not graduate college, and the fact that we don't actually know where they end up or what they're doing? And do any of you have thoughts on how we can make sure kids know about the multiple pathways to post-high school success? What could we do more of as a school to help students feel just as proud of, enrolling in a construction apprenticeship program as we will give them accolades for going to Yale? I mean, I just feel, we're such a college-focused town, college for all. It doesn't serve all of our students. So that's my question. What are some of your thoughts about what could the board do to bring these issues to light? And what are some of your thoughts about how could we be helping young people find their right path? And maybe I will start with—
Great question, Shelley. Great question.
I know, I'm kind of obsessed. You all know I'm obsessed with this. So Kristen, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so first, I'm going to gently challenge your notion that we're a college-focused town. I think we're a college-focused town for a subgroup of students. If you look at some of our special education stuff through ETHS, we don't seem to think that a lot of students on IEPs go to college. While I support the career programs that we have at ETHS, as somebody who was a non-traditional student, because nobody talked to me about college, and all that, and the rates of disabled students going to college are really, really low, and our unemployment rates are also very high, and they're even higher when you don't have a college degree. I really think that disabled students should really be encouraged to go to college, and they need specialized counseling for this as well. I think that, when you add on additional marginalized identities, this becomes even more important. And I'm also concerned about, low-income students getting tracked to career readiness instead of being pushed to college and getting specialized counseling. So yeah, I'm out of time, but I could speak more.
Okay. What? Oh, yeah, it's going to be people with different opinions on that one. That's for sure. That's for sure. Who's next to take that question? Let's go with Leah.
All right. Well, I think that thinking about your future as a high school student, and in my experience working with students, some students are really ready for that, and some people find it really intimidating. So I think we have to help students to understand that we're going to expose them to through the academic curricula and counseling curricula to ways to explore multiple career pathways early, and that they're experimenting and they're exploring and they're learning about how to prepare for those various pathways, what fits them, what is it about, and see the value in that and not be intimidated by it. I think we need to reach more of our students, all students, whether you're college bound or not, with career exploration opportunities such as job shadowing and internships and things like that. Because I think that the idea that it's college or career, even if you're going to college, we want to encourage college for students who, where we want them to see themselves in college. But when you go to college, you're still going to be pursuing a career. And our school does have School Links, a college and career platform, and students work on ICAPs, individual career and academic plans. And that's something that we have to use to its fullest potential. And as board members, would be a good thing to get reports on and monitor our progress with those tools and those initiatives.
Thank you.
Monique?
Yeah, so Evanston has an issue with thinking that they are only a college town. That's the reality. The majority of the people here believe that, which makes it very difficult for the students we've been talking about. And luckily, this board has made sure that post-secondary planning is a part of Dr. Campbell's goals, because we need a plan to better communicate that there are more options, not just college. And we need to start exposing our kids to careers earlier on, especially the pathway. So we definitely don't do well in this. I mean, Shelley, you know that that's how we think about graduating from ETHS. And so it is time to think about that differently and to expose our kids differently. All our kids, even our athletes who think that they're going to go to college on a scholarship and, you know, and do whatever. There are definitely more options out there for them. And we need to make sure that that is communicated, because it's not well enough.
Okay, Liz?
Yes. So I'm also somebody who entered the workforce after graduating from high school and didn't attend college till several years later. And I think I'm worried that we might be not preparing our kids for college, maybe when it comes to the financial aspect and the financial burden that occurs when going to college, and whether that's working or taking out loans. I'm just worried that they don't fully understand the responsibility they're taking on financially when they go to college. And it could easily lead to just not having enough money to finish school. So I would be interested in seeing if we could learn more about that, if that's a large reason why students are not finishing college. I do really support certificate programs and the CTE department. I would love to see an expansion of all of that. And I think we should be able to work more with the mayor's Employment Advisory Council, MEAC, and see if we can expand that some more. It's serving a few students, but I wish it was serving many more students and doing apprenticeships and internships with local businesses. I would love to see more of that happening with our school.
Okay. Thank you for that question, Shelley. I think a lot of people can relate on either end there, most definitely. I want to open it up to the residents right now. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of messages in the chat, so we're going to open it up to the residents. So everyone get your question ready, and please raise your hand. I believe the first one, I was receiving a message from Tanya. Tanya, if you would like to unmute and ask the candidates your question directly.
Yes, good evening. Thank you. I have a question for all the potential candidates. I would like to know their stance on metal detectors at the school.
Who would like to take that first? That's a good one.
All right.
Let's start with, oh, go ahead, Leah.
Okay. I'm not specifically a fan of metal detectors as in the traditional sense of what we experience at the airport. And that doesn't mean that I don't think we should explore perhaps other weapons detection systems. I think with metal detectors specifically in that traditional sense, I think that we do have to consider how that feels as a school, because I think, again, that can be a very intrusive and almost policing kind of aspect to the culture and climate. And I'm just a pragmatic person. The implementation challenges are really significant to get 3,800 students into the building through metal detectors. And that's the reality. But I do think this is where we can explore smart technology that's out there that integrates into, perhaps our existing security cameras. And then we just have to be vigilant about being honest about what that is, because that would be an increase in surveillance, and people need to know if they're if that's happening, but I
Right.
think that we have to explore that type of route.
Okay. Who else would like to take that question?
Yeah, I'm going to really encourage people to read up on that technology about, integrating weapon detector stuff into security cameras, because it's not great. It's being developed by private companies that aren't being transparent. There's huge false positive stuff going on. They have people, it's not actually AI, because there's some part of it that's AI, but they have actual humans checking it because the false positives are so high. There's lots of school districts have implemented this already. There's already lawsuits pending because of false claims on this stuff. And fundamentally, I mean, we're also talking about videos of our kids being sent out to private companies. There's privacy issues here as well. And I'm against metal detectors for practicality purposes, and because I'm against having cops in our schools.
Okay. Liz?
Yeah, I think on the issue of metal detectors, I also don't feel comfortable with metal detectors for the practical reason of getting that many students through school. I think if they were used intermittently, it could lead to biased profiling against our Black and brown students. And it would definitely change the overall culture of our school if we had metal detectors. So I do support the district exploring newer technologies and other technologies for safety, as opposed to just the metal detectors. And I think there is some value in exploring some of the AI
20 seconds
that are available out there.
Okay.
No, I don't want metal detectors at ETHS.
Okay, that was straight to the point. That was it. That was it. Okay, thank you so much for your question, Tanya. Next, we have Shannon Lang.
Hello. This message, in one respect, goes to the incumbents and those who are wanting to be on the board, is how often are you in the school? How often do you interact with students, and how often do you interact with parents? Because some of the questions that were asked this evening, it's me as a parent of a junior, it's a totally different experience. Like some of the answers that you were giving, it didn't seem to me that you were in touch with what's going on in the school. So as an incumbent, I'm wondering how often you are in the school, how often you are interacting with students, and how often you are interacting with parents, not just parents emailing you, but actually interacting with parents. And for those who want to be on the school board, how do you do that, right? How do you know what is actually happening inside that school?
Great question, Shannon. Let's start with Liz, incumbent Liz Rolowitz.
Yes, I think I didn't quite hear the very beginning part of what Shannon said, but I think I got the gist of it. So as far as our interactions with the students and parents, I personally choose to go to events and things that I can see the students and see them interacting with the school and with teachers and with administration. And I've been invited in for daytime events and things like that, so that I can see what's going on in the school during the day. And then as far as talking to parents, I'm in the community and I talk to parents that I meet and I ask them how things are going. And I try to be receptive in that way, just as a community member. Was there anything more to your question besides that?
It's 20 seconds.
No, it sounds like you,
Yeah,
she answered
that
it.
was basically it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So I interact with parents daily. I interact with students daily. I'm in the building about maybe about 5-6 times a month. So that's my interaction. I work at McGall YMCA as the president and CEO. I have staff that are parents. I have students that are employees here. And I have family members that are also working at ETHS and nieces and nephews that attend ETHS. So I have interaction on a daily basis.
20 seconds.
Okay. Kristen.
Yeah, I have a student at ETHS, a junior, excuse me. So that, and I also, I've made an effort to talk to parents outside my circle, before I decided to run and during my campaign. And I've also talked to a lot of students, through those parents. I really tried to just reach out to people and ask them if they were willing to talk to me, because I wanted to make sure that my understanding was beyond my typical circle of people. So that's what I've done.
Leah.
This one's a particularly interesting question for me because I have been on the inside up until June. What I've been doing with my campaign, and I need to learn the protocols of being a board member, but I have a campaign committee, and my campaign manager and one of the people on my committee are college-age recent grads, and I did that by design. I've been meeting folks for coffee, and like one of the other candidates said, particularly making sure that I'm getting multiple viewpoints and meeting people that I might not otherwise necessarily already be in my circle. I want to keep attending things. So I've gone to a couple of the community talkbacks that Dr. Campbell and Dr. Kinsey had, remaining involved in events with community organizations. I think it's super important. And I mean, I just had an hour conversation with a teacher that I used to work with yesterday, and just, was able to kind of tell me how this year was going. And I think those relationships and really hearing from people is really, really important.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Shannon. Very important question. How are they going to engage? How have they been engaging to know what's going on or not know what's going on? Next person, Rose Cannon. Rose, if you unmute and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rose Cannon. I'm also a founding member of Evanston Rejects Racist Reparations. I'm here tonight because I have a question about my school district 202. I have two grandsons in the district. As a longtime Evanston resident, I've longed to ask, what is the procedure with hiring teachers and your security people in such abundance from within the Evanston community? And I asked this particular question tonight because I've had people coming from, teachers coming to me from outside the Evanston community asking me, what can I do to get hired at Evanston? In fact, I have a niece that said, no, she works in Chicago. She said, no, I would never go to Evanston. And one young lady that came to me, and she was very well qualified to work as a full teacher. She has a master's and she had worked in the Chicago system. She applied through your normal process to become an instructor there at the high school. And she was essentially turned down and offered a teacher's aide position. And she had to turn that down because she's a certified teacher that had worked in CPS and was well credentialed. And I know her very well. And so she finally went to someone inside the Evanston system and said, what do I have to do to get hired inside? And the person said, let me pull your coat. You need to know someone already inside the system, and you need to you need to be recommended from inside the system. So we out here sitting on the outside of ETHS are looking very closely at what your hiring practices are, because we notice that you hire a lot of people from within the community, and that you're not seeking people outside the community who are well documented and have very high credentials. And I just can't help but wonder, what is the procedure here? What is there some sort of informal procedure that we don't know about? And would you please hip us to it? Because a number of us know people that are qualified, well qualified outside of the Evanston system that would love to work in it, but they just don't know. They just don't have the private people inside the system who are their friends that can pull them in. So I think.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose. Is that your question? What are their practices?
My question, yeah. What is the practice? Is there an informal procedure that we don't know about? And how can you bring more qualified teachers from the outside into this system? And I think that might be a big part of the solution here.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Rose. Okay, Liz.
Yes, thank you for your question, and thanks for letting us know your friends' experiences with the hiring. As far as our role as a board member, we are notified when new people are hired, but when it comes to personnel issues and the hiring process itself, that's not something that we're privy to because it's confidential. So I didn't have an awareness of people who were outside of Evanston who were unable to get work inside the high school. But my understanding is that they do look far and wide, especially for teachers of color, and that they're open to anybody anywhere to working in the high school. But that's been my impression, just based off of my limited knowledge of the hiring practices.
Someone just sent me a message. Monique.
Yeah, so, we're responsible for supervising the superintendent, and we don't hire the staff. So I'm not familiar with why that exists. I know we have about roughly 40% of our staff are from within the community, which means the rest are not. We found that what that does, it builds relationships with our students. But in terms of, the perception, I'm not sure why that exists, but again, we're focused on making sure that Dr. Campbell and his administrators hire the staff that is needed to help teach our students.
Okay. Well, that's it for our questions. The time went really, really fast, didn't it? Doesn't seem like we've been on for 2 hours. Wow, I've learned quite a bit about D202 today. The engagement, the lack of knowledge of what's going on, it's been very, very interesting. Dr. Perlow, you were raising your hand for some?
Can I follow up on that last point? Is there time? No?
Not really time, but go ahead. If you can make it quick.
Oh, I just wanted to know what the recruitment, every piece of data shows that that if you want Black and brown teachers, that you have to recruit them. That's in college, that's at college level, that's everywhere. And so I just wanted to know about the recruitment practices, because as we know, District 202 is a majority minority institution and the teachers do not reflect that whatsoever. And that's one of the main problems to me. And so and then also the teachers that, I just want to make this comment, also the teachers that are there of color, particularly Black teachers, get a lot of backlash from white parents. And so I want to know what, in an anti-woke environment, in terms of the national climate, how are these teachers being supported and protected, the ones that are there? I mean, those probably can't be answered now, but I did want to get those out there.
Well, if we can give 30 seconds to the incumbents to respond to that, and then we're going to give our final comments for our, allow our candidates to have their final comments to the public. But I would like to hear the response to that, because I've heard that complaint as well about D202. Monique, if you'd like to take that one.
Sure. So last school year, teachers came to the board and presented their concerns about not hiring or replacing enough Black teachers for the Black teachers that were retiring, right? And representation was critical for them. So we heard that when they came and presented to the board. And for the first time in history, we received an HR report to really understand what the goals are, what the process will be going forward. So now we have a superintendent that is held accountable for following that process, and then we will learn more throughout the school year. But this was the first time we received that report, because it was important for us to make sure that we were following and that we were truly understanding their recruitment process. So that information is on the website. It was actually like the October 7th or 10th meeting. It's available, and you can get more information from it, because it's a lot for me to just go into right now.
Liz?
Yeah, so I think what the school is doing to attract Black and brown teachers is, I think that they're making themselves known nationally as leaders in racial equity work. And I think that they're hoping that that will attract Black and brown educators to our school environment. We, like Monique said, we have had teachers come to us and with their concerns that we're not hiring enough or replacing enough Black and brown teachers. And we took that really seriously, and I know that the administration holds that as a very high priority. I forgot what else I was going to say.
That's time.
Okay.
Okay, this has been definitely eye-opening. I have to say, our panelists, I'm like, some of you all need to run for D202. Learned a lot about the panelists today. I want to give each candidate 30 seconds. 30 seconds to tell the world who you are and why they should vote for you. Let's start with Kristen.
Thanks for providing the forum. I'm just going to close by saying, as a disabled person, I'm viscerally aware that it is uncommon for folks to understand the need for disability representation in positions of influence. But like many other isms, ableism is ingrained in our society. And it's often difficult for folks who don't live it to fully understand it. We have the power to change the stories and the trajectories of disabled students at ETHS. Through my years of advocacy work, I'm prepared to take on this role, working with other ETHS board members to collectively center our most marginalized students. To get there, I need you all to see the need for representation like I do. And I know that that's a big ask, but I need you to see the students who have gone unseen for too long, and I need your vote.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Scotty, learned a great deal about you this evening. Thank you, thank you. Leah.
Okay, I think we've seen there's lots to celebrate at ETHS, and there's lots of challenges and issues that we need to face as well. I'm really excited to take on the challenge of being on the board and serving in a very different role at ETHS. I want to summarize my priorities, and that is an excellent and equitable education for all of our students, not letting up, not losing our sense of urgency in addressing the gap in academic opportunities and outcomes by race, gender, economic, and ability status. We must support all students in their post-secondary planning. We have to prioritize mental health and student well-being. Students cannot optimally learn and grow if they're struggling socially and emotionally. And so we do need to effectively incorporate social emotional learning and support in all that we do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. And next we have Liz.
Thank you. So I just wanted to state my priorities. My first priority is addressing the predictability of race and academic outcomes. And I think we need to work to decrease bias in the school and to approach the whole student when working to mitigate racism in the student experience. I also support keeping a closer eye on our students with IEPs, because sometimes they're not even seen in our data that we have. So I want to see our data collection always disaggregate by students with IEPs. And
That's time.
oh, thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Monique?
So tonight, I hope you saw that I lead with intentionality, a thoughtful process that is informed, that's collaborative and equitable. I seek to understand. As a board member, it is not only my role to advocate, but to hold the district accountable to do better, think more critically, and be more creative. However, this accountability also comes with support, problem solving, and partnership. I have been a trusted leader in this community for many years.
That's time.
There's students and sorry.
You have 15 seconds.
Oh, I was just going to say that in this community, I have a role where community and staff and students approach me and feel empowered to share with me. It is my honor and my hope that I continue to serve as a school board member, as I've done for the past 8 years.
Okay, thank you, Monique. I want to thank the candidates so much for your courage to even put yourself out there for such an important role in our community. Thank you, thank you. I feel I learned a great deal more about each one of these candidates. So thank you all for your time and your passion for our youth. Though we may not agree on things and approach things differently, but I do see that everyone cares. And to our panelists, my goodness, I love you guys. Thank you so much for all of your help over the past couple of weeks to help put this together. Thank you so much for being caring community members and caring about all of the kids and making sure we put the right leadership on that board. So thank you. And to everyone that's out there watching, you could have been here, you could have been anywhere, and you chose to be here because this is very, very important. Our youth is very, very important. And as you can see, there's some things going on in D202 that more of us need to pay attention, whether we have kids there or not, because it does have an impact on our community as a whole. Okay, and thank you again to C&W, our sponsor for this evening. And you all be sure to get out there and vote. And this has been recorded, so you can go back and watch and encourage others to watch it so that they can get to know these candidates a little bit more as well. So get out and vote, stay engaged, and thank you so much for caring. Good night.
Thank you.